The Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council is working on a report to highlight what it calls the disturbingly high rate of sexual violence targeting Arizonans with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And joining us now is John Myers. He's the executive director of the ADDPC. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. This is a tough topic to talk about here, so let's get right into it. This is called the Untold Stories Research Project. What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, this project is really the culmination of about 3 years of work done by Dr. Lynn Tomasa, a researcher at the University of Arizona affiliated with the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities. It is focused primarily on the lived experiences of individuals who have intellectual and developmental disabilities and who've been victims of sexual violence, sexual abuse, or sexual exploitation. Was
there something that inspired this, that spurred this on, or was this something that just needed to be done?
It needed to be done. It's been a long time coming. I think it's fair to say that the Hacienda incident of 2018 here in the Valley was the impetus for a lot of work in the state of Arizona on the topic of sexual abuse against individuals with IDD. Although certainly the problem didn't
right.
begin there, it's been around forever. And so as a council, we decided that it was important to fund research so we could better understand the scope of the problem.
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind when we talked about this issue and this being a topic here. Interviewing survivors, victims, both. How do you do it? That's got to be difficult.
It is a tremendous challenge. It requires some extraordinary skill and some extraordinary training. I will be the first to tell you that there are far too few individuals in Arizona who have either the training or the skill to do it. And so it presents some tremendous challenges in terms of adequately serving the individuals who are survivors of this kind of incident. It is a problem that we continue to face and one that we're trying to find remedies for.
I was going to say, it's got to be difficult to set up the interviews. It's got to be difficult to ask the questions.
Well, one of the greatest difficulties we find is finding people who are willing to speak about it in the first place. It is something that often causes shame for individuals who've gone through it. It causes issues of distrust, and far too seldom is it actually disclosed.
But once they speak, once they get the information out, I would imagine knowing that this could possibly help in some way, shape, or form has to relieve a little bit of that.
It can, certainly, although, and I hate to put a dark lining on a silver cloud, it is sometimes re-traumatizing for individuals to speak about it because many of the systems we have set up don't understand how to do it appropriately, don't understand how to elicit the right information, and too often cause the victims to live through their trauma over and over again.
Was there a common denominator, is there a common denominator in the stories that you're hearing from these folks?
I wouldn't say there's a common denominator, but there are some attributes to these stories that we find recurring. One is that often people are afraid to speak up because they're afraid they're not going to be listened to, they're not going to be believed, and that's a problem with family members and caregivers. It's a problem with law enforcement. It's a problem with service providers. Many of them are not trained to understand the signs of abuse, and so they don't recognize them, even when they're fairly evident to an expert. There are just issues that, as I said, recur, and individuals, as a result, are not willing to share their stories for fear that they won't be believed or won't be listened to.
Once these stories are shared, though, where do we go with this? What do we take from the report?
Well, what we take from the report is that systemically we have a tremendous amount of work to do. Whether it's the law enforcement response, the adult protective services response, the provider response, the caregiver response, we have to do better. We have to do better at listening to individuals who've lived through these experiences and who are willing to share them. We have to do better at building the infrastructure to support them. One of the biggest issues we have is that when individuals share their stories, we have become accustomed to want a quick answer. We want a quick description of what happened. And it simply doesn't work that way with individuals who have cognitive challenges. We need to have a system that's willing to elicit this information over time, that's willing to work with individuals to get them to share what they've gone through in a way that can make substantiation and prosecution a possibility.
With that in mind, what has been the response so far to this project?
A lot of people have been very disturbed by the information that was shared. Some of the information in the report is not necessarily graphic, but certainly does explore what people have gone through in some detail. A lot of people are willing now to do more to help bring about systemic changes. But what we find is that the collaboration, coordination remain significantly difficult for those of us who work in this area. There are so many pieces involved, so many systems involved, and we simply have much more work to do to get everybody working together, everybody on the same page about making improvements.
Got about 30 seconds left here. How do you make that? How do you get that collaboration to improve?
You know, it's simply going to take time. We, as I said, we need to listen to the victims more. We need to listen to what they've gone through. We need to provide better training for behavioral health providers, better training for healthcare providers, better training for law enforcement and first responders. It's something that really means getting everybody around the table and coming to some agreement on what we can do. And it's an issue of resources. We simply need more financial resources to help serve the system that responds to these events.
John Myers, ADDPC, thank you. Important topic. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.